Welcome to another live edition here on a Wednesday night of the Rock Pile. Catch me live every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Fist pumps to everybody out there listening. If you're listening, put in the comment box. If you're listening on Facebook, where are you listening from tonight? Put it in the comment box if you can. Got a great show for you tonight. I have my cousin Kevin Adey, the owner of Faro Restaurant, going to join me in just a moment. As always, follow me on Facebook, follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and you can also follow me on all those platforms right off of Facebook. So, without further ado, let's see if I can get Kevin on the into the platform here. Let's see, Kev. There you are. What's going on?
Nothing much, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Welcome to the show, buddy.
It's good to be on. I've been watching the last few weeks and really happy to be on. It's going to be a good time.
Well, Kev, I was thinking about this as you were the first non-sports guest I had 5 years ago on the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch. 5 years ago.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, I've been on the air 5 years, and you were the first non-sports guest.
That is really something. Although I do love sports, so it's easier to I can talk a little bit of small ball or whatnot, but it's nice to break it up, to have someone who's not completely in the sports world, give an opinion I like.
Well, Kev, I was telling you the other day when we were talking as I was waiting for my son, but you're a Yankee fan. You know Michael Kay, obviously, and Michael Kay is a Fordham grad, and his show's Center Stage. And as I started doing the radio show, I said, you know what? I said, I've done sports my entire life. I said, why not branch out and talk to everybody?
There's so much, in the kitchen, we always say, if you're not learning something every day, you should be learning from the dishwasher. You should be learning from the guests, everybody in the house. So if you apply yourself, you can learn from everyone.
Kev, what the hell are they going to do social distance in Coney Island? This could be the first year we don't have the hot dog eating contest.
I'll never go back. I'll tell you.
Is it going to happen?
It is not. There's no way.
You don't think so?
I hope not, for a couple of reasons, but it's a zoo. It's a zoo down there. People on top of people. So I don't know how you can do that. And then if you're not going to have the people, I don't know why you do it in an alleyway behind a hot dog shop.
It's all about the introductions. George Shea and the introductions. That's what the hot dog eating contest is.
It goes on for at least an hour more than you see on television.
The aftermath, right? Yeah.
You can believe it. It goes on for at least an hour more than you see on TV. It's the only time I've ever seen a sporting event where I was glad I was short. The truth. There are people. The roads there are so old; they're really curved. And I was standing by the back curb, and so everybody in front of me was going higher up. And if I would have had to see that in person, I don't think I would have been able to eat for a while. But it is an American tradition, 4th of July tradition.
Yeah.
Great New York City, fun time.
Well, Kev, I want to dive into. I told you, usually I don't do any show prep for family members, but I actually had to do some show prepping for you tonight. I want you to tell the listeners that don't know Kevin Adey the journey it's been for you to actually get to Faro. Like, tell us about it.
Faro took a long time, and for a good reason. You get cooking is a craft, just like any other craft. You got to hone it every day. It's a traditional. Especially the way I went about it, but in the way everyone should go about it is a traditional, journeyman, apprentice, journeyman, master craft, where you spend the beginning part of your career, working for whoever will let you work for them. And then the middle part of your career, choosing who you want to learn from. And then, as you get a little older, you can get into a position where you get to make a few decisions. And it took me about maybe 15 years of cooking to get to Faro. And the last 5 of that, I was running a kitchen. Like, I didn't have a boss that lived in the state, basically running the entire restaurant, which was great because it allowed me to learn some things you never know until it's your money, and that's when it gets pretty serious, when you're trying to put up your life savings to create something, and the learning curve can be really steep, especially in a big city like New York, where the rent is not inexpensive. But I started off cooking in middle school. With the fact that my mom needed someone to help her get dinner in the oven so that we could all eat as a family. It's really important for my family to have that meal together. And I kind of just fell in love with the idea of making other people happy. That's really what being a chef is. It's not, there's certain fun things that I do at work, and, I get to control that now, which is wonderful. But being a chef is about nurturing other people, and when the first time you ever, not even create something, like the first time you just cook somebody a steak or something they've had a million times, make someone a chocolate milk, whatever it is, you can see that smile on their face. And, as people get, for me, getting older and, really focusing on appeasing a certain set of the society, that their taste buds have already been challenged. So it makes it harder for me to impress somebody, to make someone smile, which is really what keeps it alive for me, is that thought of someone who, to bring it back to sports, was Joe DiMaggio said there's some kid who seen you play for the first time today.
Yep.
And so and there's always somebody who's walking into Faro for the first time, and I want to make sure that when they walk in, it is a wow moment for them, something, a place that they'd like to come back to, a place that they feel nurtured and happy leaving. One of the better compliments I ever got was from a Roman, but they said, I've been looking around and not one person's on their phone. This was in the last, 5 years, obviously. And that was, I never really think of it like that, because I'm not looking at, it's rare to see people on their phone in my restaurant, to get people to focus on each other, on the meal, consuming together, is a point of pride for me, that people can leave that stress of their email or their this or that, or the burden of Facebook or Instagram, or just leave it at the door for 2 hours, and have some good grub, and then go home, and then you can deal with your problems again.
Kev, so and even in sports, a lot of athletes, when they first get into sports, they know when they want to be a coach. You have it in you from day one. You say, I know long term I'm going to be a football coach or a basketball coach. When you got into the hospitality, the restaurant business, did you know right away that your long term goal was you wanted to be a restaurant owner?
Yes, basically yes. I met my wife almost 20 years ago, 18, 19 years ago. And the first thing, we were talking about, met at work, and it was like, I'm going to one day open a restaurant. You want to work at it, and it's, there's a real part of cooking that you miss when you're young, that you don't realize it while you're doing it. It's kind of like, the Karate Kid doesn't understand why he's painting the fence. does something, punch him, and now I find great beauty in shucking peas and blanching a vegetable properly. All these little tiny things that you can make anybody who cares do. But when you're doing them, it's so it is very menial, to shuck 10 pounds of peas every single day and blanch them, and you're trying to go forward and trying to go forward. And one of the things I recognized right away is that I saw a few kids who were slightly older than me get put into positions of leadership, and they didn't have the base of the pyramid, and they, you get eaten alive in the kitchen if you're new to a kitchen, in charge of people, and the chef says, make sous vide or something, and you don't know, and all the cooks know, even though the cooks know it, just because that's what they serve in their kitchen, you will be eaten alive. And I was like, well, I need to go at a measured pace to get to where I need to be. But from day one, I knew that I wanted to be the one choosing how much pepper went on the steak.
Well, Kev, there's always bosses that I've had throughout my life that I don't like a boss, but you respect them because they're your boss. You've worked for a lot of owners, managers, right? You've had a lot of different types of chefs that you've learned from. Was there one or two particularly that almost where you said to yourself, "This is staying for me"? Was there any of those experiences along the way?
Uh, there were kitchens like that where I kind of was like, I don't want to, I'm a big believer in practice like you play. And I knew right away this is not really what I wanted to do. But I got some really good advice when I was, 21 years old, from a guy named Todd Sheffield, who was from Rochester, actually. And he said to me, don't stay in a kitchen 1 minute past they don't have anything to teach you. He goes, the day you get there and they don't want to teach you anything new, pull the ripcord. Walk out, get another job. And this dude had worked everywhere. He worked at barbecue places, and he worked at Nick Tahoe's for a while. He, pizza parlors, sandwich shops, sushi, Chinese, Japanese. Like, he worked everywhere and learned and learned and learned. And I don't know if I had chefs that I wanted to get away from. I really feel like I made some very good decisions about that. But there were a few restaurants where I was like, this is a mistake. This was, a lot of window dressing. And then you get in the kitchen and, they're doing things that don't live up to my expectation of what if you're going to go to work for 17 hours a day, maybe you should put a little effort into it. It's just the wasted time that you have with people who are expecting you to work long hours and cutting corners because they already know how to do whatever. So they cheat, fake chicken stock is a thing. Like if I see someone using that, and I'm just like, you effed up, buddy. I'm not going to do that, because the first kitchen I worked in was I was so far over my head that it was hard to manage day-to-day basic tasks because it was the first time I ever done it. I didn't go to school for it. I didn't have that MIC job where you kind of learn how the basic flow of things. I literally was thrown into a tornado with a guy who was Italian, but he used to yell at me in French and in a French accent because that's how he got yelled at, which was still pretty interesting.
So, Kev, earth, wheat, and fire.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about that.
You got to have a catchphrase. As you get older, there's things that become important to you in what you do every day, especially in the kitchen. It ties back into what I just said. But for me, being respectful of the earth, being respectful of where we live, and how we consume things, especially meat, was really important to me. So that's where the earth part came from. Wheat is how you make pasta. And before I opened Faro, one of the things that I had pushed and pushed and pushed on every ingredient. Where's it coming from? Who's growing it? How are they growing it? What are they using in the soil? How is it harvested? There's a lot. Like everything I could. But flour, it comes in a bag. It has no, until you think about it, it's just a bag of flour. When you start thinking about it, that is weird that's a nameless, faceless, placeless, rootless ingredient that everyone is using constantly. And so I really started doing a little research into it. We started milling our own grains. There's where the wheat comes from. And fire is at the time, and it's still prevalent to some extent. And I'm not against it in any, for other people, they make their own decisions. But sous vide was really popular at the time and has been for a long time, which is a method of cooking where you vacuum seal stuff and put it into, a water bath. And I think I think that it has its place, but I would never allow that in my kitchen to make it easier for a cook to complete his day without screwing up. Like you don't. It's training wheels. Like just learn to cook it. And so we cook stuff in a fire, and that's very difficult. Having a chef come into the restaurant and thinking I cooked a piece of chicken sous vide, and it was cooked in a fire, was one of the greatest moments. To have a really renowned chef think that I taught a kid good enough to fool that guy how to cook something in a fire. Cooking with that's very rudimentary. The first food was cooked with a fire, and probably the last. I had those three things, and I was like, how am I going to put that together? I was like, fire, wheat, and earth. And then it just hit me, earth, wind, and fire. It's a popular band, and it sounded really good. So I just substituted the wheat, and we were off and running.
Well, Kev, we got some comments on here. I put one up here on the screen. Your mom watching says hi. So I had to, and if your mom stays on for the whole show, I know you said she might fall asleep, right? And you're gonna have to hit your little thing you got there in the background, right? But I'm gonna try something I haven't tried here tonight. So if your mom stays up, I'm gonna put a link into the broadcast where if she actually clicks on the link, I might be able to get her on here live with us. So if she stays on, I might have 5 minutes at the end where I'm going to try something tonight, and we'll see if we can get your mom on to say a few words. Let's see what else. Miss Sauls, Kathleen Sauls says, hi, Kevin.
Oh, a wonderful guest and a wonderful human being.
Yep. Let's see who else we got. Had Amanda Parsons says, Kevin.
Amanda Parsons, the best.
You got a good audience, Kev.
Oh,
Mark
good.
Beer says, the animal.
That's my brother.
Let's see. Your mom says she's up. Let's see. Jen says Rome's proud of you, Kevin.
Oh, wonderful.
So we got a bunch on here, which is pretty cool. So, Kev, the other thing I was really impressed with is when a lot of times you got to start from the ground up, and you've definitely started from the ground up and worked your way up to the top. What I thought was really neat is your restaurant was a warehouse before you turned it into a restaurant. Talk about that transition.
Well, basic nightmare, I guess is a good way to put it. I'll skip the lesson on how terrible real estate in any major city is. It's you don't need to hear another sob story from me. But I'll talk about what was important about it. Finding a raw space, which is the only thing we look for. We never looked at a restaurant, a pre-existing restaurant, for one really important reason. Restaurants fail all the time because some guy can't cook. They also fail because someone who built the restaurant had no idea how to actually ride that roller coaster, and you know, even roller coasters that have cataclysmic failure, some part of it actually worked. You got going,
Right.
and that's how restaurants can be. You can get, the restaurant that I worked in before I opened Faro, whoever put the hood in it, put it about 3/4 of an inch away from the wall and an angled top. And the restaurant had been open for a few years before I got there, but you couldn't clean it enough. You couldn't get your hand on the side. You couldn't get anything in there. So as you cook, oil aerosolizes and gets up in the air. It lands on the tilted hood, and it spends the rest of the night dripping down the side. And you spend the rest of the night wiping every 10 minutes. You're wiping, and that problem could have been solved, right? And when you think about it, like, well, that's an annoyance. Well, of course it is. But when the health department comes in, it's money that comes out of your pocket.
Sure.
And once they get you, and that's no joke that there's places in New York City that are spending $30,000 a year on fines to stay open. That's it. That's crazy. It's really crazy. So, building things with a purpose. We spray painted on the floor everything before we bought a thing, before we did anything. It was like, this is where this is going to be. And then I would stand there and make believe, I'm cooking. And then where do I grab, I've cooked, tens of thousands of things. So I'll just pretend I'm cooking a pasta dish. So it's like, what is the first thing you do? You grab the pan. Okay, where does the pan go? Right? So where are the pans going to be in this situation? Where is the oil container you're going to use? Is it going to be a Bain Marie with a ladle? Is it going to be a squeeze bottle? Are you going to have a speed pourer? And every single aspect, from where the dishwasher is to how much space it is between the oven and the cooler, which is enough space for a person to stand in front of the oven while it's open and one person to walk behind them, was walked through before we made a purchase. The make-believe of clearing a table, and where do you put the empty, where does it all go? All of this, that process, Faro's been open for 5 years. We built for a year, but New York City construction, it was really about 3 and 9 months of crying. And then, but a year and a half before that, so 2.5 years before we even opened, we started with the looking, the seeking, the searching, and the planning, which, I'm sure one of those notebooks behind me is the original drawings that I did of what I wanted the kitchen to look like. And
so you had the game plan, you had the prep, and you were preparing this for a while, before you executed stuff.
Yep.
You think, a lot of people, I think too, Kev, they think it's easy to run a business. Let's just start a business and, we can make money. And a lot of them fail so fast because they're just not prepared.
Yeah. Everybody eats. Almost everybody cooks, whether it's just one thing or a lot of things. I'm sure you could cook something, you grill, you're working maybe you got your dish, that's not what it's like in a restaurant, and that's okay. That's great that you've got your chocolate cake that you make every year, or your whatever it is that you make on Sundays. It's not how a restaurant works. So you're a little bit duped into, everybody loves my chocolate cake. Well, maybe they love it because there's way too much butter and it's the best chocolate you can afford. And so now you have to charge $31 for a slice of chocolate cake, and no one wants to buy it. So even though it's the best cake, the business end is kind of screwed up. So it's a tough business because it's something that everyone does every day, and a lot of people get duped into it. Also, you don't make any money doing this. Like, this is not a business where you make real money. The most successful restaurants on the food front are not equal to the crappiest food restaurants. You know, I mean, they make money a penny at a time, but they make a lot of pennies.
Yeah, and those margins are so small.
Yeah. And in my restaurant, maybe I make 10 cents, but I'm selling a lot less than you're getting at another place. You really have to love being the person who's at the party who's not enjoying themselves at all. They're making the other people enjoy themselves. That's what makes me happy. So it's a perfect fit for me. I like to be making the other person happy. So it's a pretty good fit for me.
So we got some more comments here, Kev. We got Todd Kelsey. Remember, Todd says, "Great to see you, gentlemen." He's out there.
King of the worm burner. I miss you.
We got Bob Gula says, "Hi, Rock and Kev."
Oh, love that guy.
And then Donna Smaldon says, "The Smaldons are watching. We loved our dinner with the Seraces and Corks when they came out." Let's see what else we got. Justin Nee says, "Love this. Lot of respect for you, Rock and Kevin." Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it.
Oh, I like it. Bill's Mafia.
And then my wife says, "We got to take the trip down, and hopefully you can make a vegetarian meal." She don't eat meat, Kev. Can you got any vegetarian stuff?
I have a lot, yeah.
All right, that's good. And then, of course, my wife said, when you said I can probably make a dish, she says, "No, he cannot."
That's okay. That's why I have, this nice shirt, is because people have to come to me for dinner, especially in this town.
Well, Kev, my sister's got questions on your menu, which I'm going to get to. But what I wanted to ask you is probably not a very memorable date for you, but March 15th. What happened?
Well, first I'll just say this: Faro is going to be okay. We're going to be all right. It started before that when I was in the city and I went to this Chinese restaurant that I go to from time to time, and it's always packed. Land of Plenty, if you're ever in the city, 53rd Street. Great Szechuan food. Always packed, always busy. And then probably a week or so, maybe 10 days before we ended up closing, I went in for lunch, and it was so dead. We might have been the only people in there. And that's like being the only person at Disney World. I mean, like, it was surprising. Yeah. And, I had seen the stuff on TV, and I had seen the news, and, good thing is I don't care about money. I care about that I'm never going to have some server tell me that their mom died because some person got them sick and they went home, Yeah. So we actually shut down before we were mandated to. Once the service, there's not a nickel to spare. There's not a person to spare in the restaurant business. So, when you start to see mandatory toning down of how many people you can put in your restaurant, you can't be open. It does not work like that. Wholesale, from rent to, what you pay for toilet paper has to be changed when you start limiting how many people can come in the restaurant. So we shut it down for safety reasons. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see something was your baby go dark, but it was the only way to save it. You can't push through this. When you order to-go food and you're doing it through an online app, those people they're getting so much money that you can't build your business. You can't survive. Like, I would have been losing if my business was just online to go, I'd lose 10% a year, even with the same sales and the same busy. doesn't like you can't survive that. So, and now, you got the summer coming, which, knock on wood, Faro, we're okay. We do okay. I run the business properly. My wife is a legend with the numbers, and we're okay. But even good restaurants close in August. August will eat you alive. Everybody's out of the city. It's hot. It's disgusting. You live in the city,
Yeah. Fordham Road, baby. The D train.
It kills good restaurants. In a normal year, in a happy year, it'll kill a restaurant. So I'm going to hold off. We're not even we just did stage 1 2 days ago, so we got time. With all that's going on in the world, it's not going to be quick from 1 to 3, especially that over 30,000 people died. Here, it's going to be 200,000 dead people in America by September. It's not good times out there.
Kev, what about the CARES Act? Did you guys qualify for any grants or anything to help you with funding?
On it, and we're trying to be really smart about it, but it doesn't like the PPP loan. You have to have it. They just changed it to 60. It used to be 75% of your employees hired back at their original wage. Well, if your restaurant isn't even existing, how are you going to bring? What am I going to bring them back and give them money? And that goes for 2 months. Unemployment goes for 6, so they get off unemployment because they get a job back. And then what happens to them for the next 4 months if I can't be open?
Well, what I'm running into, Kev, is there's some of our employees and more the drivers here than office folks. But when Cuomo passed that $600 stimulus, there's some folks that are making more on unemployment than they would be back on the payroll. Does that affect you guys too? Do you have some people that are making more on that?
I pay the cooks very well, and so most of them make around that, which is not normal for we're trying to keep it as tight, especially but they work really hard for me. They're great kids. They're all there to learn. No one's there for a job. They're all there for an education and for an advancement in their career. But I don't feel, even though, my first job, I got paid $4 less an hour than the dishwasher because I was learning, and I was learning, and thank goodness I took that job. You have to have some of that to succeed, I think. But I don't feel the need to put that pressure on these kids, not in New York City.
Now, Kev, we talked a little bit about, the streamline and the outsourcing, because you said as far as, the deliveries go and takeout, really not, it's hard to serve what you serve as takeout. But did you ever think about possibly streamlining or outsourcing any of that stuff?
I think about, because in September, there is no such thing as half a restaurant. It doesn't exist. So if in September it's 50% capacity, I'm not going to open the restaurant. I'm going to get to go. And my plan is, don't record this and put it on the internet or anything. My plan is to hopefully do pasta kits where I'm going to box up a pound of fresh pasta, a pint of some sort of ragu, maybe even a vegetarian one. I don't know. And a salad with some vinaigrette. And then you can buy your wine or whatever to add on to it, because that travels really well. Everybody can cook a pound of pasta. The sauce work is already done for you. And I can do it affordably and at a small enough number a week that I can do it myself and keep the restaurant open. Alive, I should say alive, not open.
So we got some more comments here. Let me put what we got up here now. We got my cousin Mark Peluso. Says, love the restaurant, Kevin. My wife and I had dinner there for the first time before we flew to Costa Rica for our honeymoon.
Oh, very nice.
Nice. Very nice. Let's see. Wendy Wadilla. Miss Wadilla says, hey, how are you? Thanks.
Our neighbor.
Yeah, the old neighbor. The old neighborhood. So, Kev, as far as some of your main focus, for food there, what are some of your key foods you guys focus on?
Well, we really focus on locally sourced meat and vegetables, locally grown wheat. Um, that's the most important thing to me is how it's raised, knowing the farmer. These things are really important, and I don't want to get into a. I'm certainly not anti-vegetarian, and I don't want to come off that way, but I'm pro vegetable, right? And that there is no other way to look at this. This is fact, and if you want to eat an organic vegetable, you need an animal to make the organics to grow the vegetable. And I don't think it's fair to ask a farmer to pay to house and feed an animal to create this organic matter. And then when it finally dies, you throw it in a dumpster. I think it's abhorrent. And I also think that the way we consume meat in America is abhorrent. The feedlots and everybody gets a giant steak for 10 cents, and it's not it's that's bad. That's just as bad as you can get. So I find the guy who has a few animals that are used to supplement a cyclical farming environment, where um, different farm animals do different things. Cows walk around and they eat the grass. Um, Chickens will then be led into that pasture 3 days later to eat um, basically maggots. You know, they go around, they mash up all the organic matter, and then pigs are rooters and they turn the soil over. They work for you, they work for the farmer, they help out. Um, if you just use that field to raise carrots or lettuce, that's wonderful. What are you going to do with the pig and the cow and the chickens? You know, you gotta. If the farmer needs to be able to utilize those things, So I'm looking for that guy. I'm looking for the guy who thinks about the earth instead of thinking about how many more cows can I get here so I can sell more steakums. You know, it's for me. It's a guy who is, you know, um, you know, less than 100 cows a year. You know, that's a small farm. You know,
So, Kev, you got a couple things. Your dad's got here something on here, which I think I've heard this story, but he says, "Tell Rock the story of Arthur." And I
Arthur's a
think
pig I
I've heard the pig, right?
Yeah, Arthur's a pig I raised. I raised the pig to see if you could, talk the talk and walk the walk. Really, can I kill something, kill something myself and eat it, and then continue to do so, right? And turns out you can. I can. Um, it was extremely difficult to take an animal's life, but it was it. I think about it all the time with every animal that I process. You know, it's really important for you to understand that the stuff at the grocery store walked around. That doesn't mean don't eat it. It means don't eat the wrong stuff. Because if you are against if you don't eat meat because the way they treat animals, you are effing up bad. Because these other people who don't care, they're going to keep eating those animals, and they're going to put the little farmers who do it the right way out of business. And sooner or later, they'll figure out a way to do it even cheaper and more disgusting and terribly. So you gotta join the fight. You gotta join the fight, and you gotta find a farm. You know, um, I actually slaughtered Arthur in Hartwick. with Larry Altizer at Larry's Custom Meats. He specializes in slaughtering animals from local people around upstate New York. Very small scale abattoir, and he's an animal lover. The dude was crying. This is important. The transition from an animal to food is an important thing for everybody. Same way in transition of a tree, beautiful, respected, living thing. Be your house.
Right.
You should really think about it before you cut it down. Same thing.
So Kev, my sister says, how'd you come up with your menu?
It's so many lifetimes ago that I could even. I don't know what's on the. I also little side note. The minute I take something off the menu, I forget about it. There's something like where my brain is always focused forward. I don't know. I couldn't name one dish that was on the menu. I can name some pasta shapes, but not one. The way I come up with most of the stuff that I do, by going to the farmer's market, getting inspiration, seeing something, and then going, what can I do with that? What are the ways I can craft that into something else, whittle it down? Using your bag of tricks, hopefully it gets a little bit bigger every day. And it's all about seasonality for me, really. I'm one of the saddest things is I didn't get any peas this spring. The ramps, the fiddleheads, all the things that would have just been coming out. You didn't get, and I'm going to miss out on corn and tomatoes, and the summer stuff. Good news is fall's my favorite time to cook. So, at least I got that going for me.
So Kev, we got another one. Stephanie D'Arcangelo says, if you ever given any Rome specialties to the chefs you have worked for, and she putting turkey joints, says from Anthony.
I absolutely do. One of my favorite, when I first moved to New York, I went home. I was working at a very, top 15 restaurant in the world. And I'd been living in Florida for 10 years, and I didn't get home for a lot of holidays. So I started there right around now, really. And I asked the chef for Thanksgiving off without, telling him I was Thanksgiving. And we had a little bit of back and forth. I explained to him that I hadn't been home for a holiday in 10 years and I'd really like to go. And we made an arrangement. And when I came back, I brought turkey joints. And in that kitchen, aside from being some of the best savory chefs in the world, the pastry chef there was the best pastry chef in the world, probably still is. A guy named Mike Lascanis, who I can't even describe how much of a legend this guy is. He really something. He puts everybody else to shame, and that's, I've eaten in a lot of places, and like his mind is, it's like a savant. He just sees things in a way that you don't really see in kitchens. And I brought him a jar, and he's like, "Man, these are great. Where'd you get them?" And I was telling him, and he's like, "Oh, that's interesting." He turns out, obviously he's passionate about his craft, and one of the things was, things that he loved was like local candies, and so, some of the best chefs in the world have had the turkey joints, although they're not that I think this is a bad thing. They are getting a little more expensive, so they're getting a little less handoutable. So,
Kev, remember Lance Cyrus, right? He says, Kevin Rock, what's up?
Man, blast from the past.
Yeah, which is cool. Lance always tunes in. That's awesome. Thanks, Lance. So, Kev, popular menu items. What's some of the popular ones, other than the whole menu is good, but what are some popular ones?
Okay. I guess here you go. If you want to open a restaurant, just serve rigatoni. Everyone put whatever you want on it, and everyone's going to order it. I have to take it off the menu. I don't like to have it on because it's first of all, I love rigatoni. I'm a ziti guy of like box pasta or curly pasta, like rotini or if I'm gonna get box pasta, which is not very often, that's the way I go. But so I don't judge any pasta shape except for cavatappi. If you like cavatappi, you're probably a jihadist. But let's just leave that alone. Rigatoni, everyone knows it, and so they're like, oh, I'll just have the rigatoni. They're too afraid to think of what a scarpinac could be, or a strozzapreti, or they don't want to think out of the box. So rigatoni will always sell. The bucatini, which is now actually a different shape, but which was my grandmother's recipe, those always sell great. Also a pasta shape people know. To the point where we used to have them at brunch. We did a rigatoni alla Grecia, which is like it's a how do I best describe this? It's carbonara without an egg. So it's guanciale and black pepper and cheese. And people, lose their mind. And the cooks would just chant, Riggy, Boog, Riggy. Because that's all it was. Just, we were doing brunch. It was just over and over and over again. So the duck, I can't take the duck off the menu. We always have duck on the menu. The other proteins changed. 2 fish, 2 meat. One of them is always duck. And then the 8 or 10 pastas that we do change all the time. Caramelle is also a big popular one. I don't know. I also, the most important thing for me is if it becomes popular, I take it away from them. I can't allow myself to be beholden to this dish where I have to do it because that's why they're here.
Yep.
If that's why you're coming, maybe you'll try something else. Maybe you won't come back, but I will not get bored of what I do for a living because you.
That's interesting because a lot of people would probably say the opposite. They want to keep, if people like something on your menu, they want to keep it. So that's an interesting take.
I have to take it away from them. We had a dish. Actually, it's on the menu. Well, it was on the menu when we closed, but when we first opened, we got one of our dishes got named the best, second best dish in New York City. I went to work the next day. It took it off the menu because I didn't want to be beholden to it. To be like, I didn't ever want to look at it and go, "Oh God, this again." That just, it's soul sucking. When you're doing something not because you want to, but because some other person wants to. Because, so, spoiler alert. Sooner or later, I will cook something that will disappoint you that you've had 100 times. It's the law of diminishing returns. You go on a roller coaster. First time is great. Second time, you see a few more different things you were looking for. By the 100th time, it's just a chair that moves. It doesn't matter about those other 99 times. That 100th time ruined you for that roller coaster. You're not getting on it again. Maybe a few years from now, you'll revisit that roller coaster and it'll reawaken you.
So,
Go ahead.
so you had Kimberly Ann said the Giants or Jets?
Buffalo Bills.
The Bills. All right.
Buffalo Bills.
Nobody circles the wagon.
That I can't watch unless they're playing the Jets.
So, Kev, I got a couple more things for you that I am going to see if your mom can figure this thing out. And I haven't brought a guest on live during a show since I've been starting to do this. So we're going to see if we can make it work because I got a few minutes here. But, Kev, I always like to ask everybody, whether they're coaches, athletes, there's always people that have helped you, that you've looked up to, that have helped you along your journey to where you're at today. Who are some of those people?
Well, I like to think almost everybody I've run into, even the bad people, help you. Some of the most influential people, I worked, the first chef I worked for, Rusty. He did everything right. And that is a really good thing to see in your first kitchen. A guy who expects, he did the work himself. He worked hard. He expected it out of everyone around him. That's, I think, really important. Eric Repair, to some extent, was real eye opening. I mean, that's a kitchen where you cook for kings and presidents. I cooked for the First Lady, Robert Duvall, my favorite celebrity guest of all time. But Chief Justice, I mean, like this in crazy world of literally kings. I actually physically ran into the I think it was the president of the Dominican Republic. I bumped into him while he was smoking a cigar out front. I was running out of work. That's something you don't see every day.
Right.
Just the privilege of being in a kitchen like that is not lost on me. Also my parents did a really good job. Raising me and my brother, I think, and very influential, both positive forces in my life, which a lot of people don't have in their life. So, thanks to them. I also will say that, part of what I do is kind of coaching. It's been more, I think, better described as like the conductor of an orchestra, where you don't get to actually play anything yourself, but you got to put your emotion into other people. And growing up in my house, everybody, everybody's a coach. Everyone's a coach. So you have, my uncles, my old man, all their friends. Just these kind of Coach Davis. Coach Mize. These guys who, there's no off switch for coaching. You're coaching all the time. Usually, I can't think of an opposite on this, but usually trying to make other people better than you are. You're trying to together everyone achieves more kind of mentality, and so you don't get a lot of bad advice when you're surrounded by coaches all the time. I played sports, had a lot of good coaches, but it was more so the people around the house. Going to work with my old man, carrying Coach Steve Frank, legend. Growing up, carrying cords for him. Way too young to be on the sideline of a college football game. My wife gives me inspiration. She's a great woman.
No, definitely been blessed, Kev, to be around some good people. And like you said, my family's the same way. I mean, we're family. Everybody's coaches. You're a coach. I mean, you're a head coach where you're at, just in a different field. I mean, I like to say, the jobs that I've had in leadership roles, we're head coaches. We're just head coaches on a different playing field.
Yeah. You just can't take it out of you. If you want to stand there and teach swimming or whatever it is you do, you're going to always want to be that guy. If that's really what you want, if that's what you want in your heart, to make other people better, you're going to continue those lessons. Out, no matter what you're doing. I don't want to name drop, but I'm going to have to for this one. I was at a concert, right? And I was backstage. I ended up getting backstage, and I ran into Bill Walton, right? And he's gigantic, right? And I had to stop myself from yelling out, "Make each day your masterpiece." The classic wooden line. Because I thought I was going to get thrown out, and I didn't want to get thrown out by yelling at Bill Walton. But there's a big part of me that wishes I did. That I would have loved to see his face at a place where he's probably not expecting a 70-year-old wooden quote, 60-year-old wooden quote. So,
Kev, I'm going to see if your mom can make this happen, because I got about 2 minutes. So I'm going to see if we can at least bring her on. But, and Bonnie, if you're watching, which I'm hopefully you are, I just put a link across the screen that says "Join me live on this link." Click that link. Follow the steps. I got to see if we can make this happen. This would be huge, Kev. I haven't done this yet.
Hey,
but I figure we can see if she can get on here.
It may be past her bedtime.
No, I'm going to go on a limb and say I think she's up. We're gonna see if, because like I said, I got a couple minutes here before I get off the air, so she's got to click that link, and we'll see if we can get her on here. Kev, while we're waiting, though, real fast if you can, talk about the Michelin Award.
Michelin is an international bar of excellence. Achieving that was a dream come true. Really was. To be in the same conversation as some of these other chefs in America who earned this is mind-boggling. I always make my wife take pictures of me when I'm at the award, like next to these guys that that their books are all behind me. We stand on the shoulders of the people who come before us, and there's part of it that thinks it's comical, but it was a dream come true. Yeah.
Well, Kev, I don't know. She said she's still up, so I don't know if she's probably having. I put her on the spot. I probably should have tried to give her a heads up notice on this, but I would have loved to seen if we can make it happen. But well, listen, Kev. I mean, we're all proud of you this way, man. I love you. You've done a great job, and I think you're an inspiration for all of us. With everything going on out there in New York City, you're right in the middle of everything out there, man, and to still be able to stand tall through it all. Keep fighting, man. You've done a great job.
I appreciate it. This has been fun. I'd love to do this again, and I got the free time. So if you need a fill-in, I could be like the Carson fill-in guy. I'm there for you anytime. Nice to see all the Rome crowd, joining in the conversation. I hope that everyone's staying safe. People are excited to get back to their normal life soon. Hopefully we can get to that point, for next year. And I just want to say thanks again for having me on. And it's been great.
All right, man. No problem. Listen, stay in touch. Love you. Tell the wife, love her, and hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
Will do, my friend. You stay safe and enjoy the rest of your night.
You too, man. Stay in touch. That was awesome having my cousin on, and there I threw out my Aunt Bonnie here at the last minute. I probably should have gave her a heads up, but I wanted to see if we can do that. I'll have to try to do it another time, but Kevin's great, and like I said, Kevin always stays in touch, and one of my biggest followers, which I always appreciate. So again, like the video tonight, give me a share it with all your friends, family members. Go to my Facebook profile page. You can follow me on all the social media sites. Next week, special guest Rebecca Stedman, the new owners at Fort Ricky Discovery Farm right here in Rome, will join me next Wednesday night. They will open next Saturday. So they're going to be right here prime time with me Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. So on behalf of the Rock Pile tonight, I appreciate you following me. I'll see you next week.